Do you want to start it?
Yeah, sure, why not? Well, welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast, episode I guess 3.
Yes, free.
Last week was the news, and this week it's now Rose, the pilot episode for New Who, and I think quite a fantastic wee episode, personally.
I don't think you can get. It's not a great episode by any means, but it's perfect for starting us off on the universe of what will be a wild adventure.
Before we actually start, I just think I don't know if we actually did it in our pilot episode. I'm Matthew, and this is Scott. We're the hosts of the show. I don't think we actually did our intros last time.
Did we not?
I don't remember saying. I mean, I can always add it in on the start where it's like, this podcast is hosted by blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I don't know if we actually said that last time. But yeah, we're talking about Rose this week.
Yes, I'm Matthew.
Yeah, and I'm also Matthew.
No, I'm Scott. Confuse our audience right from the get-go.
Hi, I'm Matthew Gerard, and this is Scott Reed.
Inside joke, nobody would understand because they don't know us.
They might know me. They might be a big fan of youtube.com/messyoutube, where the greatest comedy videos are made with that mess.
He's a very handsome ginger man.
Yeah.
Drinking from a Boba Fett cup.
Indeed I am. I'm drinking his brains, which are made of delicious tea. Lubricate that throat. But anyway, on to the episode. I guess we'll just dive straight in to episode 1. Do you have anything to say before we do that, Scott?
Let's do a big. So we like to do like a big history dive onto writers and shit. This is our first episode, so we're obviously doing Russell T Davies this time around. Do you want to hear about Russell T Davies, Matthew?
Oh boy, do I? Tell me all about him.
So, Russell was born April 1963. He was a fan of the show since 1966. So he must have seen William Hartnell transform into Patrick Troughton. Have you seen that?
I was there. I remember it clear as day. Little known fact is that William Hartnell actually transformed into Patrick Troughton. Wasn't written. He just lay down, and next thing you know, body changed. It was quite scarring, honestly.
He was very committed to his work. But yeah, Russell T Davies started work as a director, assistant floor manager, and publicist. He basically wore many hats on a BBC show called Why Don't You between 1985 and 1990.
Never heard of that show.
Yes, because we're too young. So he worked on many things like during this period of BBC. He was a host on an episode of Play School at one point, and I showed you a picture of him on Play School. He had a mullet.
Yes, he was looking sharp.
He looked horrifying.
It just makes me think of the Simpsons quote, where it says, "Whatever is his belt," as was the style at the time.
But he never wanted to do camera work after Playdays, so he basically stuck to writing. His first show was created in 1991 called Dark Season, and it starred a young Kate Winslet when she was 15 years old.
Kate Winslet, known for such films as...
Wow, you have to Google it.
I do.
Dude,
no, Titanic, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I do know this actor. She's very
We were
good.
film students. How do you...
Yeah.
But yeah, Dark Season was a show where there was an evil teacher who brainwashed students with computers. If that sounds familiar, it's because he later reused this concept on School Reunion.
I was going to say, that's a Doctor Who episode where Sarah Jane comes back and K9. And I remember reading about that episode in Doctor Who magazine, because that's how I learned about who K9 and who Sarah Jane were, because I was like 6 or 7. when that episode came out, so I had no idea who these people were. And then I remember reading about it in the magazine and getting very excited that they were from the original series of Doctor Who. Uh, it's a fun episode, I'm sure we'll cover.
We will cover it in October. Little insight to our schedule. We've not planned out much, but in October we're doing a Liz Sladen month. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we've not planned out much, but we've planned out most of the year. Just feels like we've not planned out much.
But yeah, between 1992 and 1998, he basically worked between the BBC and ITV. He did kids programs and soap operas. Notable work of his includes a couple of episodes of Chucklevision, iconic,
Hell yeah,
and Coronation Street.
boo.
Your favorite show.
Famously love Coronation Street. Seen every episode of it. I love the bit where they're on the street and someone runs down with a coronation. I don't even know where I'm going with this.
Coronation Street is too depressing.
I don't think I've seen an episode since I was like maybe 9 or 10, and it was just on as I was on like daytime TV. I was on like Skype in school. Like,
Yeah, that's the only reason why you would watch Coronation Street.
100%.
But anyway, while he was at ITV, he basically suggested to his boss that they should perhaps buy the rights to Doctor Who, and his boss turned around and said, "Why would we do that?" So he fucked themselves over.
What a world it would be if Doctor Who was on ITV. I feel
Yeah,
like
it
they
would've
would
been
have
insane.
cancelled. I feel like they would have cancelled it ages ago.
Imagine Doctor Who with advert breaks.
Yeah, I know.
That'd be
Weird.
weird.
It would be weird, but like, I feel like the BBC is constantly looking for a reason to get rid of Doctor Who, but they just can't really justify it because it still does. And believe us when we say it, it still does good in the ratings.
It does.
So they can't really justify canceling it that way. And also, it's got this history. It's integral to BBC at this point, you know. So it's part of the history of BBC. So it's like a flagship thing for them. But if they sold it to ITV, ITV has no connection to it.
The TV movie was like shot by Fox, remember, in America. So it was a period of weird times for Doctor Who where nobody was sure if it was ever coming back or if it was going to be on the BBC. Like the BBC wanted nothing to do with it.
And they still don't.
But anyway, Russell's first Doctor Who work is a novel called Damaged Goods. He wrote it in 1996, which was when the TV movie was just about to come out and disappointed everyone.
Yeah.
Have you seen the TV movie?
I've seen a fair chunk of it. It was, I don't know if I've seen it all, but I saw it when I was younger, and you know, I remember we spoke about this in our first episode about the Doctor being straight up murdered immediately upon landing in the United States, and I remember the weird ass master who's like a snake man.
Oh my, yeah. Eric Roberts.
Yeah. It's a trip.
It's compared to Rose, it's like on a whole nother level of just it's a bad pilot.
Imagine if they made Rose like the TV movie. Yeah. Which, you know, they share some elements. The people get gunned down in the pilot as well, which we'll get into. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on that. But
anyway, I'll fucking continue the story. So yeah, Damaged Goods involves a boy named Gabriel Tyler. That name should sound familiar.
it does
He lives
not.
Rose Tyler.
Oh my! Right, I was focusing on the Gabriel bit and not the Tyler bit.
One thing about Russell is he loves the last name Tyler. I'll go in more detail later, but Gabriel Tyler was a boy who lived in a council estate to get supernatural powers. The story was remade by Big Finish in 2015, and it stars Sylvester McCoy. In 1998, he met the head of BBC programming, suggested bringing back Tom Baker to the role, which would have been very strange.
That would have fucked with the canon even more than it's already been fucked with. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how Tom Baker would have been involved. Like,
my guess is it would be a complete reboot, and Tom Baker would play the first Doctor.
yeah, because in 1998, the only good thing about Doctor Who that people remembered was Tom Baker in the role.
So like you would
the last-
you'd wipe the slate clean. You'd get rid of all, which they kind of do with the pilot. You know, it's like, oh, the Time Lords are gone now. Like,
Yeah, Rose really ignores most of the continuity, which is
yeah.
good for the first episode. You need the audience to be able to jump on board without 26 seasons of mess. Speaking of mess, your YouTube channel,
Hey.
subscribe to.
It's all connected.
But during this time, like the rights were held by BBC Films, so they couldn't do a TV series with Doctor Who. So defeated, Russell basically went to Channel 4 and made Queer as Folk, which is basically the thing he's most known for. And the main character is called Vince Tyler.
Wow.
Does that sound familiar?
It does. That does sound familiar.
And the character Vince Tyler was basically a character who made Doctor Who references. So Russell was a huge fan and just basically wrote himself into his script, apparently.
It's understandable. It's the easiest way to write.
So by 2001, new people became heads for the BBC. They were big fans of Doctor Who and wanted to find a way of bringing it back into the public consciousness. In 2001, Russell met the head of drama, Laura Mackey, and he pitched ideas for episodes including a dinosaur episode and a robot parody of The Weakest Link.
Ooh, which we end up seeing later on in the first season.
Of course, yeah.
Oh my god, you remember The Weakest Link? What a blast from the past.
The Weakest Link parody does not age well.
It's such a time capsule of that. I remember The Weakest Link being massive. Like, such a big show, you know? And then it just stopped. It just suddenly, there was no more Weakest Link.
None of the game shows that was featured in the end of Doctor Who Series 1 is on the air now. Big Brother or that makeover show. I don't even know what that makeover show is. It's so lost to time.
There's a weird amount of game shows in the first season of Doctor Who.
Yeah. But basically, around this time, people kept on calling Russell T Davies crazy for wanting to make Doctor Who, because it was this thing that was basically a joke. Nobody thought Doctor Who would ever work on being on the air again. So by October 2001, he met Jane Tranter, who was the head of drama, and good things started from there. And by 2003, we were all given the news that Doctor Who was back in production. So Julie Gardner, the head of BBC Wales, was joined the show as producer, and she later made a TV production company called Bad Wolf.
Ah, that does sound familiar.
Which is a direct reference to also Doctor Who. I don't like any of the shows she's made though.
What has she made since?
Under the production of Bad Wolf, she made shows like A Discovery of Witches and His Dark Materials.
The newest His Dark Materials?
Yeah, the show based on the Golden Compass.
I thought it was supposed to be okay.
I don't like either of them.
I never watched it because I don't have that much of an attachment to Golden Compass outside the really bad movie that came out when I was a kid.
I've never seen the movie, but the show was not great.
Interesting.
But Bad Wolf also makes I Hate Susie, which is a show starring Billie Piper. So
That's supposed to be decent.
I've not seen it yet, but I need to watch it.
A lot of people have been complimenting Billie Piper's performance, and because I think she's also helped write it, which is interesting. I don't know much about it, but
between 2000 and 2005, Russell became like the big name in television, and he made shows like The Second Son, which stars Christopher Eccleston, and Casanova, which stars David Tennant. So he was starting to get his Doctor Who cast together for the show. So Christopher Eccleston wasn't a fan of the show. He saw some of Patrick Troughton episodes, but did not care for the show. But when he heard Russell was involved, he was like, I really love his scripts and I just want to be involved. So he sent him a note saying, please audition me. You would know. Remember Christopher Eccleston in For the Dark World?
For the dark. Oh yeah, Weird Elf Man. Weird Elf Man, who I didn't realize it was Christopher Eccleston until after the film had come out and after I'd seen it, and I saw this random article online, because it's recognizable now if you look at him and you're like, oh yeah, that is clearly Christopher Eccleston. But that movie's so bland and so boring that I never connected it as being Christopher Eccleston when I saw it at all.
It's not a great movie, is it?
It's up there with some of the worst of Marvel.
It pretty much is the worst of Marvel, I think.
Off the top of my head, yeah.
But anyway, Russell got Christopher Eccleston to be the Doctor, which was great casting. And he also got Billie Piper, who was mainly known for being a pop star. Have you ever heard of her music?
I didn't. Obviously, when Doctor Who came out in 2005, I would have been 5 years old, so I had no actual knowledge of who Billie Piper was, because I didn't really have a personality at 5 years old. I was, kid that liked things. I remember my mum telling me she was a pop star, or like she used to be a pop star by 2005. I don't know if she was still making music. And I think it was just recently, actually, that you sent me a short video with some of Billie Piper's music, and
yeah,
it is bad. It is not good at all, and it's again a perfect time capsule of early 2000s trash. It's everything you'd expect overly produced pop music to be from the early 2000s. Like
especially British music. Like we don't have I don't think we have that good of a track record in pop music, especially between like the 90s and now.
Pop music really is not my genre, so I cannot tell you. The X Factor's a show. One Direction, are they a band? I don't know.
I think they split up.
I'm sure they did. Yeah, British music's usually British pop, specifically is terrible.
Surprising thing I found out about Billie Piper is that she's the youngest person. Well, she was the youngest person at the time to have a #1 hit in the UK. She was 15, I believe, when she came out for her biggest hit.
Yeah, interesting thing with Billie Piper, which she talked about on David Tennant's podcast, because obviously she was like a child star and like a child musician shit and stuff like that. And she was like, by the age of 13, she had moved out and had her own flat.
Jesus.
Which is ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah.
I'm surprised she seems
as well put together.
Yeah. Like, but one of her most known things is, I didn't find out this until recently. She did a song for the first Pokemon movie.
No way.
Like,
well, really? Is it in the film?
Like, probably in the end credits, but
oh my god. Oh my god.
One of those. I don't know what the song is, but
this is blowing my mind. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It's blowing my mind.
But yeah, I think 1999.
Making My Way brackets Any Way That I Can by Billie Piper is from the Pokemon movie.
Isn't that crazy?
That's absolutely crazy. I'm gonna listen to it as soon as this advert finishes, and I'll tell you if it's good or not.
It probably isn't. Spoiler alert.
I'm excited. Okay, it's funky. Starting off very funky.
Is it bad? Good?
It's okay. So far, it's a lot of people moaning. Okay,
Sexually?
like harmonically.
Oh.
Okay, they're basically just singing the regular. I'll include the smallest clip I can without getting copyright stricken. But they're basically singing the regular Pokemon lyrics. You know. But there's like 2 or 3 different female singers, and they're so overly produced I can barely make out any words they're saying. But that's an interesting tidbit. I would have never ever guessed that Rose made Pokemon movie music.
It's wild, isn't it?
That's insane.
But yeah, back to Russell T Davies. Russell wanted emotional narrative stories intercut with the big sci-fi action you'd expect from Doctor Who. He was heavily inspired by shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Smallville. Buffy is my life, so...
I really like Buffy. I've not seen a lot of it. My mum was a big fan of Buffy when I was a kid.
Dude, we need to watch Buffy. We need to start a Buffy podcast.
Who watches Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Smallville is a show as well. I've never really put much time into. Too many episodes.
Yeah,
too many.
I never watched Smallville. It looks silly.
Yeah, from what I understand, the ending sucks as well. So too much and
we're
not enough time.
So when Russell started his pitch for Doctor Who, he wanted things like Gallifrey being destroyed. He wanted to do a soft reboot so audiences weren't turned off by a 26 season show. He wanted the Doctor to be more of the modern day. He wanted him to be without a posh accent. He wanted him to be a loner. And most controversial of all, he wanted the Doctor and Rose to be soulmates. His words.
Interesting.
I do not like that.
I don't agree with them being soulmates. I like the pseudo love story that happens between them over the course of like the 2 seasons that Rose is involved with. The soulmates thing is weird, especially she's like 18 in the show, like 20,
yeah.
She's very young in the show. Which is a bit weird, but
and he's like 900.
At that point, you know, the age gap, like you'd be hard pressed to find someone the same age. But it's the soulmates thing I definitely don't agree with as a plot point. I don't think the Doctor needs. I mean, the Doctor has River Song. That's 100% a better companion. And Scott's just left me right now, so I'm going to keep talking. There we go, he's back. I think that River Song is a way better companion for the Doctor as far as love interests go. But I really liked the almost tragic tale of Rose and the Doctor getting together, because, you know, they could never actually be together. And then, obviously, they find the most convoluted Doctor Who way around that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think he was very inspired by Buffy when it came to the Doctor and Rose's love arc, because Buffy is a show where she's a vampire slayer and she falls in love with a vampire, so it's very like Romeo and Juliet, kind of like they shouldn't be together. And the vampire is also like 200 years old, so it's like a big age difference.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But, you know, I think Rose is still, to this day, one of the best companions the Doctor's ever had. Like...
hit and miss.
Oh, yeah, definitely hit and miss. But from, like... For the first companion the Doctor could have, I think Rose was a fantastic choice. She's young, she's
She
youthful, she's quote unquote hip with the times. Uh,
she's the first companion to have like a life. Like
mhm.
none of the previous companions ever had like family members or a job. Well, they had jobs, but it wasn't integral
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
storylines and
We're
shit.
we're or like science teachers. Let's follow this random student home into a shed. Oh, now we're on an adventure for like 500 episodes. Like,
Yeah, that was creepy when they followed her home,
yeah, they just
Susan.
followed her home. Like,
So Russell's original concept for this episode in the 90s, it involved a cleaner in an office who would become the companion. The computer terminals came to life and swallowed people.
so just
The
just your
doctor.
average day in the office.
So yeah, he completely reworked the idea of computer terminals from his Dark Seasons show and later reused it in School Reunion.
Yep.
One of his ideas was to have a doctor and companion to escape out the window in a window cleaning cradle. If you remember the first episode of series 4, the Doctor and Donna do the same thing.
So they do. Yep. It's interesting how many ideas end up getting used either later on or reused from previous scripts. It reminds me of in Classic Who, towards the end of Classic Who, very famous novelist. Oh my God, sweet Christ, guy that
Douglas
wrote.
Adams.
Yes, Douglas Adams. Sweet Jesus. Douglas Adams. I'm reading Hitchhiker's Guide right now, like the whole series. I don't know why I forgot his name. Douglas Adams, who was helping or script supervisor or helping run the
Yes.
show. He for this third book of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is actually a reused script from a Doctor Who episode he never got to make, which is it's all about cricket and it's very weird. But you could see where the Doctor Who inspiration for that, and that's kind of a reverse of what's happening or what happened with Russell T Davis, where Russell T Davis wrote these things and then went, "Oh, this could work in Doctor Who instead." And then,
Yeah.
whereas with Douglas Adams, it was something that never got made with Doctor Who that he then turned into a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book.
He also Dirk Gently, another novel of his, was also an idea for Doctor Who originally.
I've never read the books. Quite enjoyed the Netflix show, though apparently it's nothing like the books. So
I've not seen the Netflix show because of Max
yeah,
Landis.
because of Stinky Max
Yikes.
Landis. Yeah, yeah,
We're going to talk about another stinky man eventually.
yeah. We're
He
going
gets
to
swallowed by a bin.
where he should have stayed.
But yeah, eventually Russell settled on the Autons to open the episode. And another interesting tidbit about this episode is that he originally wanted Edgar Wright to direct it,
That would have
which
been
would have
cool.
been which would have been fun.
Yeah, that's like
Also,
that's like hot off the presses from Spaced and stuff.
the
And
year
Shaun of the
before he
Dead.
directed, yeah,
Yeah,
Shaun of the Dead the year before.
yeah, that would have been cool.
But instead he got Keith Folk, who I don't know.
No, I'm
He did
sure.
like episodes. He did
Yeah.
episodes of Casualty and all those other shows.
Yeah, I'm sure
I
he
don't-
was. I'm sure he was a steady hand in BBC for their shows.
But last bit of information is never believe the newspapers because the Daily Mail reported that David Beckham would play an Auton version of himself, trying to replace Tony Blair and George Bush with lookalikes.
That would have been the weirdest subplot.
That was the episode originally, apparently.
That's insane. That's so far removed from what we actually end up seeing.
Which is why you can't believe newspapers when they say Jodie is leaving.
Well,
She probably isn't leaving.
This is her third season. It must be the sacrifices must be made. The BBC gods will only allow so much.
Yeah, but she also just gave an interview where she says, "I don't want to leave. It's too upsetting to think about that."
Yeah, of course she's gonna say that. Like, she can't get it spoiled. But I don't think she's leaving at the end of this series. I think it'll be the New Year's special when she decides to leave, because they never it's usually Christmas when the Doctor regenerates. Or if they give Jodie a Christmas special this year, 100% she's regenerating, because they refuse to give her a Christmas special. And so they're like, you can get one when you're leaving the show.
We'll talk about this more in the future, but I'm happy she's not getting any Christmas specials.
Christmas specials are the best.
Awful.
They're
Awful,
the best.
awful.
It's a Christmas. It's not Christmas without a bad episode of Doctor Who. I like.
God. But anyway, that's it for all the pre-production stuff. Now on to the episode.
On to the episode of Rose.
Did you write notes about this, by the way?
I will tell you right now, I am not a notes-taking man. If I don't remember something, I wasn't supposed to remember it. But
tell me, what's the plot of this episode?
Oh boy, I was hoping you'd ask me that. I can tell you, I can replay most of this episode in my head. So we open to Rose going around her job. I'm pretty sure she's doing some shit, some clothing job, and she has to go down to the basement for some reason, because that's where I thought the set was really weird here. In the basement, in like some crappy little corner, is the like, I forget what his job title was. Oh my god, it was like I
think he was like a manager.
Yeah, it was
Wilson?
like a manager or something, and he's like, oh yeah, my office is in this dingy little basement with this crappy sign that's 100% a storage closet.
Well, that's pretty accurate to where I work, though. Like.
And in there, she's got like lottery money or something, because gambling's fun. And in there, there's just a bunch of disused mannequins. That's the word for them.
Yes.
Just a bunch of disused mannequins. It's all very creepy. And then there's this great bit where you see the mannequin's head turn. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, it's a good opening scene.
And it ends up with some bullshit happening, and eventually Rose runs into the Doctor, who says his first line, and I think it's probably the best line the Doctor could have said, because it encapsulates a lot of Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat's era. He goes, "Run." just run. Doesn't say hello, doesn't go, "Hi, I'm the Doctor." It's run. And so they do, and this leads to them running, and the whole building explodes, and no one makes that big of a deal about it. Which again, that's another running theme in Doctor Who, which we see later in the series with, when the Big Ben gets smashed into by the Slovene. That's a massive thing, and then everybody conveniently forgets.
Because of the cracks in time.
Yeah, obviously.
In Series 5.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it. Remember?
How could I remember? The cracks in time made me forget.
I think old age made you forget. You're only like, what, 20?
21. I'm a big boy.
Old enough to drink in America. Well done.
Yeah. And anyway, they continue, and the Doctor, I think, leaves her. One thing that really stood out to me in this episode is, obviously they don't have the budget size that they'll have later in the series, or later in the series, and it's a lot of Rose and the Doctor are walking down the street, and now they're walking down this street, and now Rose and the Doctor are walking down this street as they're talking. It's a lot of that. But the main plot that we need to know here is that there are these things called autons?
Autons, yes.
Autons, yes. I remember reading about them in Doctor Who magazine, and being very excited by them.
Big boy reads big words.
Because they were a classic Who villain.
Yes.
Which is, I think, one.
They only appeared twice.
Mm-hmm. But it's a hook to get the old fans back. They're like, oh yeah, this is the villain that we know, haha, with this weird show. And then the new fans get in with this much more kind of fun, but he's the mysterious stranger with a dark past. Doctor, who's obviously we know now is coming back from just regenerating from John Hurt's War Doctor in the tremendous 50th anniversary.
It was okay. We will cover that another day. It was okay.
But there are automatons and my
Autons.
autons, whatever, and they're trying to take over. they're doing something. They want to take over the world because their planet was destroyed in the Time War.
Doctor Who is not political in no way.
There's the absolute classic moment near the end of the episode where the Doctor's looking for the big radar dish standing in front of the London Eye. Hilarious moment. Solid good moment.
It's perfect.
It's so good.
It's where he says fantastic for the first time.
It is the iconic line of fantastic, which led to the trend of each Doctor having a catchphrase.
Apart from 12 and 13.
Yeah, I don't think Capaldi has had one, and I don't think Jodie has one.
They don't need catchphrases.
But there was fantastic, Alonzi, and Geronimo. It's memorable.
We just gave up.
Yeah, there's only so many phrases you can really say, isn't there? But anyway, back to earlier in the episode. Rose has a boyfriend played by human scumbag, probably Noel Clarke. Who she's pretty decent. He's like really obsessive to the point of kind of grossness.
See, I remember Mickey being kind of like, you feel sympathy for him, but now that certain things have come out, he is not likable in any way.
It's I used to really like Mickey as a character, and you feel the tinge of like, oh, that sucks when Eccleston's Doctor just straight up hates him, and it bleeds into Tennant's as well. Like Tennant's is more, I think, slightly more welcoming to him, but he still like pokes fun at him and jabs at him and stuff. But Eccleston's Doctor straight up doesn't like him.
Oh God!
Like he doesn't want anything to do with him at all.
One of his first lines was in the script was originally, when a shop explodes, Mickey was supposed to find Rose on the street, and his first line would have been asking her for money for a pub. That's his first line.
Ooh, rough.
Yeah,
That's rough.
He's not the best character. There's also like later on when she's at his flat, and he says like 2 lines to her. Like, he says to her, any excuse to get into the bedroom, don't read my emails. And it's like, he's not a good person, is he? I used to feel sympathy for this man, but like now it's like,
just a bit
it's
yucky.
It's like Ross from Friends.
Ross has his moments where he's likable, but most of the time he's a big creep.
Every time I watch Friends, Ross gets worse.
But in the episode, fucking the plastic men are about. The search is afoot. The Doctor's ran off somewhere, and Rose is looking into who this mysterious Doctor guy is, which leads her to meet a character that I actually quite liked and wanted to see more of, whose name I'm forgetting, but he's like the dad.
Clive.
Clive. He's really into Doctor Who, basically. And he's been doing a bunch of research, which this was a weird canon thing for me that didn't make sense. At the start of the episode, when we see Eccleston come in, and this is pure nitpicking, this is pure just like, but I noticed this thing, is Eccleston, when he goes into Rose's flat for the first time, he looks himself in the mirror, and he flicks with his ears, and he's like, oh, it's a bit big.
He also does magic, which suggests he's like trying to find out what hit skills he has in his new body.
The implication is he's like fresh regenerated. Like he's fresh out the tin. But then we go meet Clive, and Clive's like, oh yeah, he's been about for ages. And we see these really, really badly photoshopped pictures of...
They are awful.
yeah, absolutely terrible, of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor in the past being at these different historical events. And so he's not a new Doctor. He's been around doing these things throughout history.
Yeah, but also time travel. Dude.
Yeah, I suppose they could be a future version of Eccleston.
Yes.
But for the pilot, that's just a bit fucking confusing, really. But yeah, you could justify it that way. And that's where in that brief moment that we spoke about 2 weeks ago, when he leaves Rose in the TARDIS, he goes off, he does these audio dramas, he bounces around doing these, then he goes back just to make sure all the dots, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But yeah, there's that stuff with Clive. I thought Clive was really likable, and watching it, I forgot what happens to Clive, and I was like, I would like to see Clive come back. I think he'd be a really fun companion. You know, just the companion that's really into Doctor Who and really into researching the Doctor.
The concept of Clive was basically reused in Love and Monsters with Elton. Mm-hmm. Remember Elton?
Vaguely. Which episode's Love and Monsters? Is that Absorbaloff?
It's Peter Kay episodes.
Yeah.
Elton is basically a character who's obsessed with the Doctor, and they form a group researching the Doctor and shit like that. Mm-hmm. I thought that episode, underrated episode, honestly.
It's a fan script, isn't it? They were like won a competition.
The competition was to design the monster. I believe the episode was written by an actual man or a woman.
I remember being a kid and it being the first episode where I was like, that was bad.
The episode afterwards, Fear Her, was even worse. That episode was bad.
Is that the Olympics one?
Yeah, it's the one with the girl who draws pictures and they come to life.
See, that one, it's not great, but I remember that one having a nice spooky vibe to it. But
I prefer Love and Monsters.
Wow. Back to Clive. I thought Clive was really likable, and spoiler alert, he straight up gets murdered in front of his kid. He straight up gets shot dead in front of his entire family, and then we never see them again, and they're never brought up again.
It's just
really
dark.
It's a sudden dark turn. It's a complete change in tone for this one scene where Clive just bang, he's dead.
Also his wife probably never believed him about the Doctor or aliens before this point.
Yep.
And the way she finds out is watching her husband get killed by plastic men right in front of her.
Yep. And this leads me to my wish is for a future Doctor Who companion, and you know, we don't know what this new season's gonna be. Maybe this is what's his face, the comedian guy. Maybe in my wildest dreams, this is who he's playing. I want Clive's son to come back. I want
He's aged to like 40 years in the last 15 years.
Yeah, he's aged a lot. He's had a bad time, but I want Clive's son to come back, and I want him to be like obsessed with the Doctor and the sci-fi things that have been going on. You know, it's just I think it would be a real deep cut to bring him back, especially as a full-time companion. I think that's maybe asking too much. I just think it would be fun to see his son make a return, because Clive, underrated character, should have had more. What they should have done, actually, later in the season when they bring in what's his face, I forget his name. He gets the brain opening in his head.
Adam.
Yeah, Adam. He's like a companion for a couple episodes. Is make Clive Adam. So Clive goes with them. He experiences all this fun stuff, and then he gets overexcited in the future. Yeah, I'll get this brain thing done. That's just fun to me. But yeah, we got Stinky Adam, who sucked instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, Rose and that are researching into these autons. Meanwhile, Mickey is sitting in the car.
We did skip over the Doctor's speech about the Earth rotating, which was
that's a tremendous speech. That's in the moments where it was the Doctor and Rose walking down a street, and then they're walking down another street, just giving exposition.
But it works because Eccleston is just so excellent in the
He's
role.
very good, yeah. But yeah, it's probably one of Eccleston's strongest speeches. He didn't do that many speeches as the Doctor. He was more.
He did. He did plenty, I think. Especially in Dalek, which is his
Yeah,
strongest episode.
in Dalek, and his this one, his I forget the Are You My Mummy episode. That just this once, everybody lives. That's his best speech. That is his best speech, hands down. Absolutely amazing speech. But yeah, this speech is pretty fun. It really sets up the Doctor as this, dark, brooding, mysterious, like, oh, there's something big going on here. And the soundtrack, oh,
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Like the moment where he lets go of Rose's hand and the music stops.
yeah,
Absolutely goosebumps.
yeah, it's ridiculous how well this, like, most pilots you go back and watch and you're like, you can see what they're going for, but this is not as this is not aged as well as I remember it being. But this pilot,
Murray's Gold music really helps elevate the script.
yeah,
One thing about Murray Gold's music is eventually he becomes too formulaic. Like, in the Moffat era, he just basically relied on I am the Doctor too much, I think.
I'm sure we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
He used it too much. It was awful.
Yeah, so that big speech happens. Fast forward to where I jumped to.
I think Christopher Eccleston is the best actor to have played the Doctor. Not the best Doctor, but the best actor. Like he's
I think
he's got to play
to bring in for this new series, where you've got this dark, complicated character who's gone through trauma. Like he's now the last surviving member of his species or whatever. I definitely think Eccleston gets that across. Like, he gets across the pain that he's trying to hide underneath the, like, sassy comebacks and it's fun. Really, really well.
He really does. I don't think any other Doctor has had that kind of depth since or before. Like, before, the Doctor was basically like a two-dimensional character. He would wander into situations and make things right. But now we've got like a whole backstory of what the Doctor is and what makes him tick, and it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's absolutely tremendous. But now we get to the best moment in the episode, I think. Mickey Smith versus the bin. There's a crappy looking bin. I thought the effect of the bin, like, moving and opening, it was done practically. It looked pretty good. And then when Mickey touches the bin, and it's some of the worst CGI I've ever seen, like, gluing to him, I guess is what they were going for.
The original idea of this was he was supposed to get kidnapped by people in a van, and that's how he would get replaced by plastic. But then Russell was like, "Oh, I know. I want to make the bin scary to children." I mean, he wrote this weird.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
It's a complete tonal shift. It's just silly for the sake of being silly.
It never comes back with the Autons. Like, they are 100% like mannequins, but just this one guy was a bin. Like,
well, not to get too technical here, but in the season 8 opener of Pertwee's second season, a man does get absorbed by a plastic chair. That's what Russell was going for.
Wow, a deep cut.
You should watch that scene. It's great.
Mickey Smith gets eaten by the bin. The bin burps hilariously, of course. This is very much the Doctor who doesn't know how much of a kids show it wants to be and how much of a sci-fi thing it wants to do. And then Mickey is in the car, and Rose apparently loses the ability of sight.
Pizza.
Pizza. she loses both her sight and her hearing as she climbs into the car and looks at the horrific Mickey Smith. It was
You know what? You know what Plastic Mickey reminds me of? You know, Lazy Town. He reminds me
oh
of
my god,
Lazy
yes,
Town.
yeah, he's straight up from Lazy Town. He is the scariest looking creature in this entire episode. Absolutely terrifying. But they go and they
Like-
get dinner or something.
Yeah, we go get pizza.
Oh my god. Oh, and I think Rose starts to figure out something's not quite right with Mickey, but she just can't quite get her finger on it. And it leads to this great scene where the doctor pretends to be their waiter. And again, because Rose is deaf and blind, she doesn't notice it's the doctor.
I really like this scene, though. It gives great insight to who Rose is. Like, she left school to follow her boyfriend, which gives great insight to she kind of floats around in life, not really sure what she wants.
Yeah.
I think it's great insight. Like, this is like what, 20 minutes into this episode, we already have great understanding of who Rose is. It's like
Yeah.
the most character development
It's-
any companion has to this point.
It sets up Rose as, one, just super relatable. You understand all of her motivations perfectly well, and and then there's
She just
her
wants
weird
she
plastic
wants to
Mickey
escape
Smith.
from the she wants to escape from her mundane, regular, everyday life.
Which is what the doctor presents her with, which you understand why she would, go with him to get out of like the council estate or whatever. But that leads to the doctor fighting Plastic Mickey, if I'm remembering correctly.
So originally in this scene, Mickey's eye was supposed to drop in the soup, which would have been a better way of revealing who Plastic Mickey is. But
Oh my
instead,
god,
the way
I just remembered what happened.
the way he gets revealed is, where it's like he's saying something and it suddenly quick cuts to his voice. he goes, babe sugar, whatever, and his voice gets high pitched. Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, and then he gets giant hammer hands, and starts really badly smashing stuff.
My favorite part
My favorite
about this scene is one of the extras when the doctor pops the cork into Mickey's head. You know, the man who screams. Legit one of the best scenes in this episode. I love it.
It's so good. Eventually they defeat Plastic Mickey, or he gets away. I forget what happens.
Yeah, they behead him, don't they?
Yeah, they behead him, which leads to one of the more gross looking effects when the doctor plugs in Mickey's head to the TARDIS, and his head
What a great
starts
reveal.
his head starts to melt. And oh yeah, what a fantastic reveal of the TARDIS. Also, one of my favorite looking TARDISes from New Who. Obviously it was my first TARDIS, so I'm a little bit biased, but I love that. It's the same with Matt Smith's first TARDIS. I love the golden look with these like the weird circles and stuff.
Yeah, it looks like a temple of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
It looks fantastic. It looks alien. It looks livable. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great, and the thing that I always loved, which they spoke more with in Tennant's Doctor, though they do touch on it with this one, is they talk about the sides of it, but with like Matt Smith's TARDIS and stuff, it's like there's steps down into rooms and corridors and stuff, but with this one, you go down in floors. It's like,
Yeah.
I always loved imagining that, and then they always chat about like, oh yeah, there's a swimming pool somewhere down there. Like
I do wish we could see more of what the TARDIS looks like, because in the classic episodes, it's always a treat when the characters would wander around in corridors, and there's a point where the Doctor discovers a second control room, and it's awesome. But yeah,
Yeah, we need more actual exploring the TARDIS and seeing different rooms other than the main control room. Because it's all, it's fine and well being like, oh yeah, it's infinitely big, but we only ever see that control room.
well, budget.
Yeah, I know. But they change it like every year. They surely But yeah, and they plug in Mickey's head, and it starts to melt, and I thought was a really good looking effect still, and
Yeah,
also
it holds up.
yeah, absolutely disgusting. It was minging. Uh, I don't. I'm kind of vague on what happens after this. If you remember the specifics.
So yeah, the Doctor basically uses Mickey's head to boost a signal to find out where the Nestine consciousness is, which leads them directly in front of not Big Ben, London Eye.
Which we've spoken about. I think it's around here is my favorite moment in the entire episode, where the Doctor's giving some exposition, and I don't remember it being set up beforehand. Just out of his jacket, he pulls out anti-plastic, which will defeat them.
Yeah.
It's just, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I have this, and it'll work. Like,
His plan to defeat the Autons is rather is 3 steps. Number 1, find a bit of plastic, find a bit of Auton. Number 2, trace the signal back to the Nestine consciousness. Number 3, pour the anti-plastic into the Nestine consciousness, and we're done. That's how simple the plot needs to be. Compare that.
It's like the meme, you know. It's like step 1, get anti-plastic. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit.
But compare how simple this episode is to Christopher Eccleston's first box set with Big Finish.
It's
It's
night
a
and
whole
day.
nother level.
Yeah, it's you know, quote unquote grounded. It's set in one location. You can follow the timeline perfectly well. You understand the characters and their motivations, and yeah, it's crazy how different they are. If you look at them both as pilots, like if you look at the audio drama as like Eccleston's pilot for his series of audio dramas that are coming, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we're totally 2 different ends of the spectrum of what Doctor Who is.
Yeah. But they figure out that the giant London Eye is the giant radar dish, and as we said,
What a great scene.
what a fantastic! I think we've both said it at this point. What a fantastic scene! And they go running off to find it. I think at this point they just kind of find the way in. Like, it was like a side entrance by the London Eye or something, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they just get there
was-
and they're like, oh yeah, we're in.
It's very glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where in the original script, Rose thought the Auton, the Nestine consciousness, built the London Eye, and the Doctor was like, that would be ridiculous. We're only using the London Eye to boost our signal, whatever.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. But the Doctor at this point says he's not actually going to kill them. He has to give them a chance, which is, you know, it's very Doctor. It's very much, you know, trying to do the right thing and not just go in guns blazing. And they go in. Is someone captured at this point? I feel like maybe they are.
Mickey was captured.
Mickey was captured.
Yeah.
That was who was captured. Yes, it was.
Our favorite character.
The Plastic Man himself. They go in. The Doctor does a great speech where he's chatting to nothing.
Yeah, it's a great speech, but I do wish he was talking to something, not just green screen. It's like a giant blob of fire. It's not great.
The design for the Nestine consciousness is very, very similar to a design of a monster that comes in later on. The episode with Simon Pegg.
Oh god, yeah, the editor, the upside down.
Yeah, it's like if you made the Nestine consciousness slightly smaller and turned it upside down, same monster. Like, but
less fire.
Yeah, and less fire, and it's like the opposite because that one really liked it cold, didn't it?
Yeah.
But the CGI for this has, you know, it's a 2005 low budget British sci-fi show.
They didn't have the budget they would have in like even 2006, so we can let them off. It's a show that wasn't supposed to be a big thing.
Yeah, it looks fine enough. You can get past it.
Doctor Who has always had bad special effects, though, so yeah.
Yeah, it plays into the charm. Maybe that's the issue with the new series. The budget's too big. Uh, but yeah, the Doctor has a back and forth conversation, which is really just a one-sided conversation because we cannot understand the nesting consciousness.
This is where we find out about the Time War for the first time, which
Yep.
is probably is because obviously that Russell wanted nothing to do with Time Lords, and then Stephen Moffat came in and was like, I want stuff to do with the Time Lords.
See,
I mean,
I agree with Moffat. I was so excited when the Time Lords came back, and then they killed them off immediately. But
Moffat did nothing with the Time Lords though. Like
he used them
Hellbent.
to give, he used them to a town called Christmas. They give the Doctor a new set of regenerations. So that
Awful episode.
fantastic episode. But they give him a new set of regenerations, which we now know is totally pointless because they have an infinite number of regenerations. Because they're the timeless child. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring up the timeless child in every episode. I goddamn can't.
We really. God.
But yeah, we find out about the Time War, and it's such a good performance from Eccleston here, especially because he's not acting against anything. Like,
yeah, he's just acting against green screen. It's great.
yeah, he's absolutely.
You can feel the guilt behind what he's saying as well. Like he brings his absolute A game to it.
And then the Autons try to double cross the Doctor, or they don't agree to leave, and they grab him or whatever. And then Rose like swings like Tarzan.
It reminds me of the end of Jurassic Park 2. Remember when Jeff Goldblum's daughter is like,
Yeah, she like somersaults.
She's like, I studied gym at school. When she somersaults and kicks a dinosaur in the face. Pretty much the same scene.
Yeah, but am I right in remembering? Because I might be misremembering. The anti-plastic just kind of falls out the Doctor's pocket.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, it just kind of falls out and kills them, and then they're like, "Oh, job done." Like, it's so weird. It's like, yeah, we obviously can't make the Doctor throw this in bitter anger.
But yeah, during this scene, we also cut like back and forth between what the Doctor and Rose are doing and Jackie and Clive, which is where we see him die.
Yep. Because the Autons are running rampant throughout London, and we see Clive get murdered in something that has like there's certain Doctor Who elements that just kind of like stick with you. You know, like the Ood always freaked me out as a kid. I always thought they were super cool, and I've always remembered them. And I've always remembered the really weird episode with the devil where the Doctor fights the devil, where the Ood first show up. But this. I remember watching this for the first time. It's one of the memories when the Auton's hand splits open and the gun. That's just it's in my head. There's something about that that's just so creepy to me. I don't know. It clearly affected me in some way.
There's a great intercutting between what Rose is saying. She's like, I've got no job, no future, no friends, whatever. And every time she says a new thing, the Autumn's hand splits open. It intercuts. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool.
Also a little bit of trivia here. You know when the Autons break the glass? That was only in there because when the Autons appeared in the first serial in 1970, they couldn't break the glass on screen. So Russell kind of included that as a homage to the editor who really wanted to include that into the story. So interesting
cool.
how far things have come.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like they couldn't break the glass in 1970, but now they can.
I just think of all the crazy things they'll do that they couldn't do before. like I have a lady fall in love with a puddle.
That did happen, yes.
Yeah, they accidentally kill the nesting consciousness and shrug it off as a win. They rescue Mickey Smith, as far as I remember, and it leads to, all the Autons end up shutting down, and, Clive died for no reason, as his family grieves and are never consoled or met by the Doctor.
I, such an odd bit to. I can't.
Clive didn't need to die, like. But no, Clive dies. Rest in peace, Clive. Gone too soon. And as far as I remember, we're now at the end of the episode, where the Doctor's trying to convince Rose to come with him in the TARDIS, and she's hesitant. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to leave Mickey behind, and Mickey's being very possessive and being like, you can't go. And the Doctor straight up says, Mickey can fuck off. He's not coming with me.
We should cut back to a scene in the restaurant full of. Remember when Plastic Mickey won't shut up about the Doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can read that as Rose thinking he's been overly possessive and shit.
Yeah,
it's not too out of character for him, so you can cut her some slack for not realizing her boyfriend is Plastic.
I mean, but she is blind though, because he looks like a monster. So unless she didn't want to say it. She's like, you look like you need a shower. I'm just gonna be polite and not say anything. But yeah, the Doctor tries to convince Rose to come with him, but she's hesitant. She doesn't want to go. The Doctor's like, fair enough, and he leaves. And in that moment, we're saying the audio drama happens, and he goes back in time and visits all this shit, and that's how Clive can get those photos. And then the very next moment, he comes back, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's a time machine." Dun dun dun, and that suddenly convinces Rose to go with the Doctor, which is a quite a big plot point later on in the series, which I thought was a really nice little seedling to set up that whole arc.
Do you remember in the end where Rose's mum calls her, and she's clearly panicked about seeing dummies come to life and all that, and she just hangs up on her mum, and that's the last conversation they have in a year.
Yeah, it's no wonder like that her mum was like, "Oh, Rose is dead." Like, although weirdly she blamed Mickey, which I kind of get because he's weird.
Yeah, he is. He does have creepy killer vibes and other kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But yeah, it's no doubt that she Rose's mum gets hard done by, like. That's also we could totally skipped over the Doctor's meeting of the mum for the first time, which I think's fantastic.
Yes.
where she's like, "There's a strange man in my flat." And you're like, "Yes, there is." And I'm in my nightgown. She's like, "Yes, you are." And it's like, anything could happen. No.
Yes.
It's so good.
It's fantastic.
I take a shot every time fantastic's been said this episode. My God.
I didn't even realize I said it.
But yeah, the Doctor mentions it's a time machine. Rose is like, "See you never, Mickey," and runs into the TARDIS. And that's where the episode ends. And I think it is so good still. It's just as good as there's obviously now you have to watch it with the knowledge of creepy Noel Clarke being a creepy creeper. But I think the episode, it by itself is so goddamn good. You can get past that. I mean, if it's too much for you and you can't, fair dues. But I think the pilot's so good.
It's not perfect by any means, but it's a great introduction to who the Doctor is, what the main concept is, who Rose is, who Mickey is, who Jackie is. You really connect to these characters, and that's what Russell wanted to do, and he succeeded perfectly. It has some silly moments like Mickey getting eaten by a bin.
And Plastic Mickey. The beautiful Plastic Mickey.
But as the series goes on, especially after Dalek, every episode after that is perfect, and it's a really good start to Doctor Who, I think.
It sets up multiple arcs. It sets up who the Rose is. That sets up the Time War. It sets up the Rose motivation for wanting to go back and see her dad. It does all this stuff. And is there a reference to Bad Wolf in this episode? I know there definitely is by like episode 3.
I don't think so. No,
No.
I was keeping my eyes peeled for that, but I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe
Yep.
I'm wrong. Maybe
Yeah, maybe there's a real subtle Bad Wolf somewhere. But I know definitely by episode 3 there was very obvious Bad Wolves over the place. But that's what I miss in Doctor Who compared to like Jodie's stuff. Is these little seedlings, and Moffat was really good with that sort of things as well. Where
Was
it's
he?
like, yeah, don't you badmouth Moffat,
Dude, Series 9 had the Doctor be like, you must be some kind of hybrid every episode. It was awful.
Yeah, the Capaldi stuff wasn't that good. Yeah, I know, but like the Matt Smith, that's like peak Moffat. It's so good, but like it's the seedlings where you set up early on, and you start teasing out this mystery as it goes on for the big time travel fun reveal at the end, which we haven't had with Jodie. I mean, she likes to work with Nazis, I guess.
What?
Yeah, she threw Nazis on the Master because he's an Indian man.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah, and then she went to the Daleks, the space Nazis, and went, "Come invade Earth again."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she blew up a TARDIS, which should have destroyed it. But whatever. This isn't about that episode. But yeah, I really. I really like where Doctor Who is now, despite the things I say, and I love how far the show's come and changed. But part of me really misses this era of Doctor Who, and that's why I got so excited with this most past season of Jodie's stuff when they brought back the Russell T Davies Daleks.
Yeah.
Because it's that nostalgia injection, where you forget that it's actually bad what you're watching, but.
I think the Russell T Davies era was really good at setting up like the residents of Earth. Like every companion felt like they were human. They weren't just exposition dumps. And he was able to get storylines going. He was able to do spin-offs as well. Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, like everything felt interconnected. Which now Doctor Who feels like is like. I don't know. It's weird.
It's Doctor Who's in a much different place now than it was back then.
Yeah.
And it's like if you compare the two shows, they're different shows. They're completely different shows. But
that's Doctor Who for you. It
Yeah.
constantly changes. Like even if you compare Pertwee's first season to Hartnell's first season, like it's completely different. And I think that's what keeps Doctor Who. That's why we keep on coming back to Doctor Who, even when it's bad. Like it I would say it's bad like 70% of the time.
Oh, most of the time it's terrible. Yeah. But it's like the right kind of terrible where I love it so much. Yeah.
The Doctor Who is always like one of those shows which I will always love and will always want to talk about with my friends, and that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, and I think that I see, like, even if someone was like, "Oh, I want to start watching the new Doctor Who. Where should I start?" It would be start with Rose. It sets up so much. It introduces so many good things, and it's such a good introduction to this world and what it's like. Whereas if you were to start you could start Matt Smith's first season, where it does that exposition bit with 0, whatever the thing was, Prisoner Zero, where it like flashes through all the doctors, and then Matt Smith walks through and is like, "I'm the Doctor now, haha." Whereas like that establishes the previous world and all these different things and stuff like that. But I think this is a way better pilot than that would be, And Matt Smith's Doctor was the big breakthrough with the United States, so.
Yeah, I think. So the show was basically rebooted 3 times during the last 16 years.
Yeah.
And this is what we'll be doing over the next month. Next week we're doing the 11th Doctor's first episode, and the week after we're doing the 13th Doctor's first episode. And I think Rose is definitely the best starting off point for anyone. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's
just
like I said like 2 weeks ago with the Eccleston audio dramas. Is I wouldn't use this as an introduction to audio Doctor Who. I would 100% use Rose to get anyone into Doctor Who. Like, because it has everything you need. It's got the dumb cheesiness, like just the absurd amount of cheesiness, the weirdly dark moments where Clive gets murdered, and we need to set up some sort of Clive memorial fund. Uh, and the
dude. Remember when we used to do? Clive used to have an actual website where you could visit it, and like that kind of promotion doesn't exist in the show anymore. Like fun
Yeah.
little tie-in websites like that.
That's crazy. I wasn't. Yeah, I was like 5 when this came out, so I was not on the internet. But that's really cool. I did not know that. That's cool as hell.
Like you'd just be able to click around, see the photos of badly shopped
Badly
Eccleston in
photoshopped.
front of a Titanic, stuff like that.
Oh, that's so cool. But yeah, to summarize my thoughts, I think this is a phenomenal pilot, and I love basically everything in it. I think Eccleston shines as he always does as the Doctor, and I would give
Billie
it
Piper.
Billie Piper as well. She's super young when she's doing this as well. I think it's one of her first, if not her first, acting gig as well.
Pretty much. She did other stuff before this, but it was like extra kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is it's a hefty role to try to. You're like if Rose failed as a character, you're not invested in this series at all. And she probably has her stumbling points. But yeah, I think it was great, and I would rate it a fantastic out of 10. Ha ha ha.
We need. Thank God next week we're doing a Matt Smith episode and we won't use the fantastic pun anymore.
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
just.
We need
little
need to invest in thesauruses.
little insight to us. We just recorded 2 Eccleston podcasts in a row for the
We
last
said
like 2.5
fantastic so many
hours.
times.
So forgive us.
It's the only word I know. What were your thoughts on the episode, though, Scott?
So yeah, I didn't. This wasn't my first episode. I started off with Aliens of London, which was a worse starting off point. But yeah, Rose is the episode to start anyone on. It's like Christopher Eccleston adds so much depth to this character who's been played 8 times before, and he's able to breathe new life into it, and he's just great. It's a fantastic episode.
Yeah, it's so good. But I think that brings us to the end of talking about Rose. This has been a long one. My goodness. I'm surprised how much I remember from that episode. With like I watched it like 2-3 weeks ago, but it's so fresh in my head. Like,
dude, I must have watched this one like 50 times.
Yeah, I have no
since
idea.
Since it aired.
Yeah, it's like there's certain, like, for me, like I'm a big prequels fan for Star Wars. I absolutely adore the prequels. No, they're so good. I could talk all day about why they're good, but it's like I can replay any scene from that in my head, and Rose is one of those things where I can replay basically every scene in my head. It was that important for me, because like it was my first ever episode of Doctor Who, and I've watched every episode since then, and I've never actually had a show be like that for me, and it's so good.
Yeah, Doctor Who is what made me want to get into the industry. I haven't made it yet, also, but
well, the BBC will blacklist you after listening to this, even though we just spent an hour, like 20, being like, God, it's so good, but we mentioned the BBC in a negative light because they're transphobic scumbags, but
but yeah, that's it for this episode.
Yeah.
Anything else you need to say?
No, I'm just gonna plug the socials if there's no more points to be made.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, so this has been Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I've been Matthew. You can find me on Twitter at Cloth223 or on my YouTube page, youtube.com/messyoutube. You can find our podcast anywhere where you get podcasts, except Apple Podcasts, I think. If you just search Who Watches Who on YouTube, that's where we are. Facebook.com/ Sweet Mother of Christ. Facebook.
Or
Who Watches Who on Facebook, at Who Watches on Twitter. Find all our social medias there, where we'll probably have posted stuff about Doctor Who. Give us a follow, share with your friends, whatever. Enjoy listening to the podcast. That's, I think, all the socials I need to plug, unless you have some, Scott.
just email us anytime at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. Is that there?
Yeah, whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. Email if you've got any questions or comments, or you want to you want to shout at Scott for having the wrong opinion on Stephen Moffat, who was a fantastic showrunner / writer.
He was half good.
He was mostly good. I think that's it. Yeah, and next week we're doing the 11th hour. Is that right?
Yes,
it is. Next week
it'll be great fun.
The 11th hour. It's also the 11th Doctor's 11th anniversary next week, so that's going to be a hell of a good time.
It really is. 11 years, can you believe it?
It's honestly insane to me. It feels like he was just the Doctor. I don't get it, but yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.